Howdy. So I managed to get together a small compilation of auroras I recorded in the winter. There's even some frost pillars. These are all time lapses. I had to slow down it a little bit, otherwise it would be rather hectic to watch. So it's a bit, how to put it? Yeah, it could be smoother, but we go with what we have. Many people talk about the auroras, and they say that it's the solar wind, the particles from the sun that are creating the auroras. And in my humble opinion, that's only part of the story. Of course, we need the particles from the sun, but without Earth's atmospheric layers, there wouldn't be anything like the auroras. And if there wouldn't be a certain layer in Earth's atmosphere, we could see the auroras all the way from the sun. But apparently, they don't glow until they reach a certain height above Earth or any other planet. So it's not only about the particles coming from the sun, it's also about the receiver, in this case, Earth. And I have been involved in some discussions about light. What is light? And somehow I figured out that something rather simple to say about light is that the light doesn't do anything until it hits something. The same thing goes with emotions. Emotions don't do anything until they hit you. Just think about next time when you are somewhere in a shop or wherever are many people. Each of those individuals experiences some kind of emotions. But since they are not yours, they are not hitting you, they don't do anything to you. But anyway, I figured that I will read to you in the meanwhile when we are watching these auroras, a lesson or lecture from Andy P. Hall, The Self Against the World. And it's from June 29th, 1959. I will put a link to this whole lecture below the video so then you can go to listen to the rest of the lecture and listen to Manly P. Hall by yourself. So now let's just push play, and I will start to read you Manly P. Hall, The Self Against the World. As we wander down through the years and various things happen to us, it is sometimes rather easy to feel that the world's against us. Actually, however, this is a rather arrogant attitude. For the most part, the world doesn't know that we exist, and with this comforting, generally we can proceed to a more detailed consideration. Actually, our problem is one of the individual's relationship to an unknown. The unknown to the average person is always threatening. It is rather hard sometimes to understand why, but probably we have to go back to the atavistic beginnings of our pre-cultural period. Man began as a creature very much isolated. He struggled against the vast world around him, and of course, this world was filled with hazards. Then, as now, by degrees, the individual divided his world into two parts, the known and the unknown. About the known world, the known way of life that was his own, he gained some insight, was able to face it. He was also able to face its dangers. He recognized them as calculated risks. He knew that he had certain enemies and certain friends. He knew that the dangers of the climate of his world, storms, tidal waves, these things had to be faced. But to the degree that he understood them, he learned to face them or accept their inevitable consequences with a good grace. That which he did not understand always became part of his theological concept. When he could not rationalize, he emotionalized, and in his emotional extension, he tried to explain, perhaps in terms of the note the unknown very often. The explanation was faulty, even his explanation for the causes and reasons for the note were not always correct. In any event, he gradually divided his world into things about which he had certain common sense, and other things about which he had very little common sense, and that which he could not understand became like a crystal ball, and he looked into it and sought for an explanation. And he gazed into the ball long enough, he started a problem of psychological projection and found an impish or diabolic face staring back at him. He did not realize that this face originated in himself. He did not realize that the terrors of the unknown were really terrors in his own psychic compound. But he oddly at least came to the conclusion that outside of the known outside, of the understood, that the accepted and the ordinary was something extraordinary, and that this extraordinary thing was hazardous, was dangerous. Here again, symbolism may have shown him that the earthquake, the tidal wave, the terrible storm, the hurricane, the cyclone, these things came out of the unknown and they were dangerous. Perhaps he came finally to assume that the things which he could not control were his enemies, that he must be the victim of that which was greater than himself. The unknown is always greater than the known, and even as we proceed along the way of intellectual existence, and we conquer one unknown factor after another, the mass of the unknown is not diminished. It is still vast, mysterious, terrible, and now out of it comes the fear of invasion from other planets, the fear that rays out they may burn the earth to pieces. Fear always, man worshipping God. As the creator of all things remains till now frightened to death of the works of this benevolent creator. The reason he is frightening is because his moral sense of guilt, if he really believed he was living well and serving his God and serving his brother man constructively, he probably could accept deity as benevolent, but due to his own conduct, he has the subconscious suspicion that he is in line for punishment and he fears punishment. These different elements gradually close in around our small personal ways of living. We discover that as individuals, we live in this twofold environment, a small world of things we understand. We may not like all of them, we may resent many of them, but they seem within the range of normality. We have only the normal reactions of acceptance or rejections. But outside of this small world is again the vast sweep of the unknown vastness and greatness. Or perhaps we reverse this procedure and remove from surfaces inward. We observe that on the surfaces of things we have some comprehension, we know the way things look, and if they act according to our expectancy, we have a certain sense of security. But beneath the surface of things, there is another kind of unknown, the subconscious, our subjective. We are frightened to death of our own subconscious. We do not know what is inside ourselves, and we are always afraid that if we relax, some terrible pressure will break through. We likewise are afraid of that which lies beneath the surface of our culture. We are afraid not of the appearance of our neighbor, but of his nature behind the appearance. We suspect, but behind the person or mask of his frontal aspect, there may be someone lurking who wants our house, who will perfectly willing to steal the hose from the back faucet if anything is mislaid. We suspect everyone, and then we discover we've misled ourselves, but this does not cause us to become less suspicious of other people when our suspicions are justified. We are very sure of ourselves. When our suspicions are not justified, we do not learn from this. We are just too suspicious. The next time our empiric ground, being that the ground for suspicion is valid, always occasionally we may make a mistake, but this mistake in no way changes the general fact that everything around us justifies suspicious as we go along suspecting. More and more we discover that suspicious as a positive aspect. Suspicious, suspicion as a faculty or power has been given to us for a reason. It is a kind of challenging faculty, a suspicion presenting us with discomfort or suspicions are always uncomfortable. Challenges us to solve a mystery. What we suspect we should investigate to find out whether there is truth in it or not. And we should investigate with an open mind and with a natural seeking for facts. This we seldom do. We have lost the value of our suspicious faculty. Instead of trying to disprove it by fact, we determine to prove it by fact or not fact, whatever is required suspicious. To us, emotions that must be justified, and we look around us and we see so many things happening. We read so many accounts of persons who have been exploited. We hear so much of crime. We even come into rather personal contact with so many evidences of man's inhumanity to man, but it does not appear that we could possibly be wrong if we suspect the worst under almost all conditions. This situation can, however, lead to a dangerous psychosis, and when persons naturally inhibited or frustrated or inclined to be neurotic begin to cultivate suspicions, they are on a fair way to be very sick people. We cannot afford these doubts and fears even though there may be apparent ground. For them there is also a very peculiar psychological factor that we have to take into consideration. There is a saying in the Bible that what we fear comes upon us, and suspicion and fear no doubt to produce a measure at least the fulfillment of themselves. Now you might say that this gets into a rather abstract atmosphere. It is not really as abstract as we think. A person wrongly suspected also loses certain value in life. I've had to come I have had them come to me and explain that there were very good and perhaps very reasonable intentions were completely misconstrued, and that when this happens on a number of occasions, the desire to do nice things or to try to be helpful, this desire gradually diminishes if we are not accepted with a certain amount of faith. There seems to be little incentive for ourselves to be faithful if we are not recognized as a good intention. Then there is very little inducement for us to exhibit good intention. False suspicions therefore can destroy friendship that might otherwise flourish and can deprive us of many privileges and opportunities which might otherwise be ours. The suspicious person is reducing the size of his own world. His decree that he will live in an atmosphere of doubt and fear whether that cause be there or not. Though it may possibly be that in the course of our lives we shall accept someone, trust them, believe in that, and be exploited or robbed or injured by that person. This can happen, and it can cause great bitterness and disinclination to have further faith in people. On the other hand, it is far better to more or less forget such an isolated incident than it is to cling to it. According to the statistics we have available at the present time, approximately 3 million persons in this coming year will be guilty of some offense against society. Some of these offenses will be of criminal nature. Others will take the form of misdemeanors, but we will have 3 million persons. Of these 3 million, probably 25% will be motivated to their antisocial conduct by tremendous personal intensity. In other words, their action, whether a crime or a misdemeanor, will be unpremeditated. It will arise from a circumstance which has been exercised more pressure than these individuals can withstand. So out of approximately 175 million people, about 3 million will be troublesome. That leaves us a reasonably stout percentage of individuals who probably will be rather decent people. Our probabilities of coming under that direct influence of violence, other than on the highway due to carelessness or mechanical defects, of cars or something, our probability of coming into violence is very small. And the majority of persons live through their entire lifetime without any serious act of violence being performed against them. They will have certain misfortunes, certain difficulties, but most of the problems will be of personal nature, resulting from the deceit of friends or relations or socially unadjusted situations. This percentage does not justify the tremendous mass of suspicion. With so many persons hold it does what? With so many persons hold it does warn us that we should not complacently go on failing to make the necessary remedial steps to correct crime and misdemeanor. Wherever possible, it causes us to know that we must take reasonable precautions, but is not the ground for this tremendous sense of pessimism that burdens so many people. If we use reasonable caution, protect ourselves with long range plans of intelligence and common sense, the real chances that we laugh serious trouble are not too great, certainly not great enough to burn our entire life with suspicion or negation. Nature tells us in no uncertain terms that it does not wish us to hold negative attitudes. Nature tells us in no uncertain terms that it does not wish us to hold negative attitudes. So you can go to listen to the whole Manly P. Hall lecture for yourself, by yourself. Let's just have a quick look at the frost pillars wherever they are, because they are fascinating. Yeah, that was a very cool time-lapse shot, so to say. And let's just end with the red auroras. It's just amazing. But anyway, that's all for now. I wanted to show you a few aurora time-lapse videos. And yeah. Try to read something from mainly P. Hall. I tried to read the transcript from the YouTube video. I will put a link below. And I figured that it is a very hard task to read a transcript because there are no dots, no whatever else marks. There's just text. So it has been rather sketchy to read that. But anyway, that's all for now. Thanks. Bye.